wako na Supreme Court bia ni ho opa asumdwe a all this ruling no beba enu nti amese ne asisi na anu no nyina no enye meeting anka obeye nko a enka the first thing is to have say speaker man ruling wie no let cooler heads prevail Emma koma ento di at least Emma mere bi mfa so but you see even before speaker Emma ruling no nobody can join the Supreme Court trying to injunct ade a enyansiye and eventually a see no ade chin ya Supreme Court came out with ex parte motion or granting injunction no enti clearly no na Akufo-Addo ope o man no and na ekoso no ne ope parliament no and na ekoso no but there have always been an attempt to control three arms of government. He doesn't believe in democracy. Democracy ade ma democracy pa no the three independent arm of God, separation of powers. And the man democracy.
Na hono independence no. Say the city. Omo di omo ho senya wusi kan ya na. Say mrase bedwa fie no ono no de no ye na adwuma nko. We nso ye na adwuma nko.
Separation of powers ne tie ne say three arms no nyina ye independent of each other. Sanya be ya democracy, when we say three version of democracy can be mamin can be. Actually, democracy ne o say e mo bia kwan, mo timi kire na adwen. En se se ne nipa ba kon beka. Ene omani nyina ye di akire. E ba sa e dictatorship. And to avoid dictatorship no yen create three separate arms. Na obi an check ne ho. We check we. Parliament en ne ho so ye ne ope. Parliament nyomo be nyina we say nyina constitution no so.
That's right.
Supreme Court any court judiciary entimi nya ne omope. Ne ombe bia so nyina constitution no so. Ena executive arm so ntinya ne ompe. Enti constitution no achichere ne se ne be ya. Executive no he legislature so no. President no he legislature so no. Na legislature so he judiciary so. Na judiciary intertwined. Akika boom.
But in this case, you know, at what point in that checks eba? At what point in that checks and balance eba? In the case of Article 97, 1 G and H, Speaker Jira so di you know. At what point in a judiciary ebe wuram no ye ne bibi say wo check wo say be ya wonye bibi ebetia obi no fa awudie so.
Medasiminu Article 97, 1 G and H clear black and white. Speaker responsibility and parliament oba ye the document be bring ye adwuma ye the constitution ye adwuma ye the standing orders ye adwuma ye the judicial pronouncement and reviews ye adwuma ye the other statutory laws wo ho so ye adwuma enti speaker ne dia ne say o hwe ye standing orders ye kura me ya a lot of them have been copied verbatim from the constitution and enti ba bia standing orders no any constitution ba bra no ye fa constitution speaker ne dia ne say obehwe ne constitution no kan not the money ruling. Speaker na understanding of Article 97, 1 G and H and say okroso carpet every party baako eco party fofra e wo see you free parliament and now say you free independent eco party and our party eco independent say you free parliament at the Supreme Court betima can say speaker o understanding no wrong yen Supreme Court ye gitum say it here finito but on cancer on timi mfata bon to speaker so say twen ye hwehwem manye wadwuma ye adwuma ne de omu ntimi nkase yenye because Supreme Court enye headmaster and a parliament student Supreme Court your headmaster wa Achimota parliament headmaster wa Wenchi secondary school or a headmaster wa Mfansipem we are equal yenye obi ensho obi ase.
That's right.
And you want to mean can say speaker and say execution to think say a ex party way and your land litigation an arm of government parliament arm of government in fact parliament and a Supreme Court budget MOD na juma say parliament and Supreme Court sika onye sika no akoya juma and also who say ensa ye di fidu no yenkasa ansa no
on the basis of that so for the speaker tray edit to social media no at to screen no so ne fa ni nkomo kakra na menkai etiefo ne ahwefo se eja Richard Anamo abeka ewo studio say in fact why spokesperson Emma NDC Amanyoko no on infrastructure about kwan school dan ayaresabia ho sama ono na NDC nhyehyɛ no de kafa ho no on the kasama NDC be na de anya no ntino bai said ye democracy ene amafo say edan kwantanan sa nkomo no na me ye sure say me no eja kwaba.
Yeah.
Bibi aboko there.
Yeah, fine.
Fantastic.
I'll be mixing it all.
Yeah, don't worry, we'll be mixing it.
That's right.
You better mix it clean, no? Any broth, no.
Right.
After you speaker, no, they were trying to social media. Now, yen say, based on the watch, no, does it give an indication what they want to dream? I know na ebeba be yen in a swo, wo near ebesi wo, Brasha be because or try say God bless our homeland Ghana and make it great and strong beyond any single individual or institution. Honorable. At the end of the speaker,
this is perfect. You see, speaker, Obi Ntimi summarizing your mind echoes of my room than this post. Look, since day one, me catch say checks and balances, any separation of power. Since day one, and now President Kufuor will make an attempt to say, or per se, me and Sunny in legislature, judiciary, anyway in offer. Offer me and Sunny or yes, sir, none speaker can ebom. He wants to make himself more important than the constitution. Look, from day one, okay, say, Emra President Kufuor, omu brochure. Even without the election of the speaker, normally Aaron Makoku di na shame.
That's right.
Right on Risika Makoku di na shame say, on the speaker, me wane yankoto aba. How can you defy democracy like this? Abraye yankoto aba no what declare you speaker? Meanwhile you have no moral authority.
They no nyam from so.
Enyam from so eye boapaye because subsequent event tell say boapaye. E free hona ye ko yi speaker no in the glare view of Ghana for nyina MP for Tema West e kofa paper wo hu say ya kan back ben there e dawson or for paper ni bi orwe say na be ya be say democracy no eda no Carlos Ahenkwa eda no omo de soldier for rule chamber
no crime.
In fact over democracy mu a the chamber of parliament is sacrosanct the Jubilee House.
Why kron bia?
Why kron bia democracy Jubilee House.
Wow.
And it is all the soldier for Jubilee chamber of parliament. Now we to democracy agu.
Wow.
It took somebody as mature as Bagbin. And yet you go democracy because Sebabi decided say soldier for na ebe ura chamber hono. He will have a go at demo. It will bring the executive and the legislature into a coalition course. In fact, enyoma bebresia, senya babi na yes speaker na, me sure senka democracy in Kentias.
Yeah.
So many events. Look, for the first time in our history, Honorable Adjo Asafo was impersonated. At the time, on a minority are taking walkout because we were not in chamber. Almost smuggle somebody in.
But I know I no cre.
Ah, minua.
Adansidie bi wo ho e kire se. Ampampa.
Adansidie and a change so pictures na eba abonten no.
Yes.
Adansidie na change.
Because later on, Adjo Asafo ba mra so bedwa fie. Ebe yi ni wedi se minie. Na no na e mia ene so e mia.
Wa wote ho na wo hwe Adjo Asafo ne na wote ho ne Adjo Asafo no obegina ho no. Ye nyire nim se nya Adjo Asafo no. But luckily for them because the minority had taken a walkout. You see, it takes a leader all foresight and could see ni ebesi. Na wa stop nyoma. Se nya babia enkasa nyoma no sa de no etimi say parliament. Look, a lot of things asi. Ye nyina na ye nim say obi obetena akonwa no as speaker no. He acts with the responsibility ni nyoma as a speaker. For the first time in our history, second deputy speaker kwatena akonwa mo no ankasa ma ruling say otena akonwa no mu a he has no vote or voice but no vote.
Yeah.
MPP court, Supreme Court a ruling. Justice Abula Court, Supreme Court ruling say speaker no all representing constituency being to ultimate aba. Ebasa no parliament a change your standing orders to go with what the Supreme Court has said. And the Ankasa Supreme Court didn't interpretation. The can say send your Justice Abula court to Supreme Court can say the deputy speakers or MPs can vote until the time test practice na omon to abano. So mo te akonyon so omon to abano. Yes, Sano. Parliament is Sano.
Okay.
That is the check and balances. Me person me end. And until say na yesi, so Supreme Court can say Article 97A no, Article 97 1G and H. Interpretation in ruling na Speaker Bagbe ma ye no. Enye lawful a. En kan yesi o Parliament in case. Yesi o Parliament is because of the injunction motion. Supreme Court to their ma Parliament, they say they don't have that right to give the injunction.
So there's a bone of contention where I say the speaker here, you know, na temu no the mind, was it an interpretation? Say interpretation, MPP for argument, and they say, and yes, speaker, no, when you say when you say obey interpreti embrano, na no ye judiciary no, ne prerogative.
It was a ruling. The speaker said, "Send your tears here, his understanding. Send your no tears here." And no so or the man ruling. And the Supreme Court today says speaker and tears here, no you're wrong. They should give a ruling. They should give interpretation. Now we will go by the interpretation. But to say you cannot look at the reasons. The reasons are Supreme Court my say you'll be fundamental human right. Two, the people were not heard. Yeah.
Law of natural justice.
Parliament I'm supposed to be there. Say me ni hone ye bibi na etia me. Na me say I will stand up and catch the eye of the speaker and make my point. Say speaker there why you etia me dream say I was so tie me. These are my reasons. If you are not in parliament because one kasa unim say what defy mrano enuntia na esi ye no. And all the reasons are Supreme Court MI no. They are not tenable. Look, the last one that I'll talk about. Yeah. Any reason any document omujina so. Omo the draft Hansard report in the general so draft Hansard yebe transit na ye Hansard na the following day or the next week I will say you approve say Hansard not captured the actual things I can of parliament and Hansard now mu use Supreme Court general so no it's draft it's not been approved by parliament
and you know na mo speaker query
that is it
the abosom people leaky
only key because say yeah city we are the next sitting ebeba no ye Hansard no any which is official report, verbatim report, any vote and proceedings to say a true rendition of what happened. Parliament never approval report. No? Why do you send that report to court? And which court, in its right composition, and never rely on a draft report that have not been approved to make a decision?
Interesting. Mamifa Ora Richard Anamo Emram Komonim, and then let me see how all these issues are play out. Said you see for some Ghana democracy, is at a crossroads. Just this morning, another umbrella where minority chief whip, where an adrian said one on the waba juman 70 will ratch him by now a baby or better. And of course, this happened at the time. Speaker through the deputy marshal, what this statement better about say at 8 a.m. and I'll be my kwama Rasabega Furinina, Akotinasi. And then another thing you should also know is another umbrella supported. Ebegu baby and I'm Rasabega for no a year Juma say o move about Accra International Conference Center. Who confused me but
yes.
O move about Accra International Conference Center. So these are issues that play out in the last minute. Saying this hitel. I mean, would you agree with those who suggest tension now bay? And then said ye chromasia who it was something that a bit more avoided.
Well, let me say a good morning to all your listeners, cherished listeners. You see, I think the Supreme Court, with the greatest respect to all of them, of course, I'm a lawyer myself, just created some artificial tension. I mean, this was absolutely avoidable, completely avoidable. The first question you ask yourself is, what was so urgent that you could not come by notice? What was it? Now let's put it in the worst scenario, but God forbid that you come today and then all right, those 3 members of parliament,
4 actually,
4 members are unable to attend physically. What happens?
Yeah.
What happens? Not because they have been stopped by anybody, but they are unable to. In other words, if for any physical reason they are unable to attend. So, I mean, you carry out that sort of injunction, that's the law provides it. That is, if it is not redeemable. You know, if it's a situation that if you don't do it, what will happen cannot be reversed. But we're not in that state. There was no need for the Supreme Court to get themselves involved in that. No. In the very least, they should have just said, okay, we have received you, but let's come by notice. And then we'll hear you immediately. By now, the Supreme Court should have been sitting down maybe tomorrow next, you know, hearing the submission from the other side and taking a decision. You know, rather than going into this sort of thing and creating, panic. You know, yeah, as if without it. I mean, if they didn't do that, and then for Parliament to reconvene on Tuesday with the majority still majority, because we have to remember, the Constitution did not say that the ruling government should always have majority in Parliament.
No. Wow.
No, that's not what the Constitution said. So do not make it so. You do not make it look like look like in the absence of the majority being the ruling government, the government will fail. Not necessarily. No. That's not. There's nothing like that. I mean, the people vote for a president. They do not vote for a majority in parliament president. You know. So all those arguments that were made or submission made to the Supreme Court had no basis.
And let me just add this.
Sure.
Your marking the minority leader seemed to suggest that what happened in Parliament with regards to Speaker's ruling is just mischief on the side of the NDC to create chaos and frustrate government.
There was absolutely nothing mischievous about that. Absolutely. I mean, yesterday I heard, Atachi saying that the wrongs of the past should not be allowed to repeat. Whoever said that was wrong? No. And if you listen to the submission by the former Speaker of Parliament, what he said was that after December 7th, because remember, this Parliament will be there till January next year.
That's right.
So if after December 7th, they vote, and these people are still in government, and they are no longer, they're on the other side, what happens? What happens? That they have won the other seats. So you vote, and maybe one of them has moved to the MPP, and he has won his election.
So if I get you, Michael Quay's ruling was not faulty.
No,
there was nothing wrong.
No, absolutely, there was nothing wrong.
Wow.
That's why I'm looking at the fun. I think in the latter part of his submissions, he made it very clear that let's move it forward that by December 7th, after the election, then those who have changed from NDC to MPP or MPP to NDC, they win their seats. Come December 9th, 10th, 11th, until you now have people who have moved to the other side of the house sitting on the opposite side. That would be absurd. You know, so the issue is, what did the framers of the Constitution consider it necessary for them to put these into consideration? No, as part of the Constitution. I think that our Supreme Court has failed, regrettably.
Well,
yes.
What are your expectations on what must play out today? I mean, going into proceedings, are you expecting that the Speaker will bow to the Supreme Court's ruling? Because some say that, look, what happened with regards to the Supreme Court was the Supreme Court just doing its job, which is interpreting the law. And some, especially those in the MPP, are suggesting that what the Speaker did was wrong, because what he did is tantamount to him interpreting the law, and that is not in his remit.
Well, I think all those arguments don't actually bring any, good thing to the table. I believe that probably in the interest of harmony, probably in the interest. The Speaker, well, that is one. If he has been served.
You have the interest of the Ghanaian people at heart, and at the end of today, Ghana will win without the chaos.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing untoward that is going to happen in this chamber today, trust me. I've been in this house for more than a decade and a half, so I know this chamber very well. We, the MPs, are very collegial. We are here playing and chatting with each other, both NDC, NPP, except that we will make our point. We will not be violent, and I don't think any member of the NPP is going to be violent. And no member of the NDC here is going to be violent. We are sitting quietly and chatting with each other. They say they are the majority with you. We say we are the majority, and then we're all sitting on the majority side, sitting side by side with each other. If you watch, your camera can zoom in. They will see us sitting side by side with one another.
We can see
and
that. But we've also seen, Mr. Yariga,
waiting for the speaker to come.
Right, but we've also seen incidents before in the same parliament where an honorable member, a woman, sat on another person because he thought that was the... We've seen pockets of incidents, should I say, that's, seem like violence before. So the assurance you're giving us is that whatever the speaker says, you would obey. But there will be no violence and no chaos in parliament today.
Nobody will go violent. I mean, if any woman wants to sit on the laps of a man, I mean, it will just create a little excitement, but it will not turn into violence. So I want to assure you that there will be no violence here.
Thank you so much.
So rest assured, the showdown is not a physical fisticuffs. The showdown is the assertion of the autonomy, independence, and powers of the coordinated arms of government. That's what the showdown is all about. If anybody has used the word showdown, not as in people typically assaulting one another.
Okay. But, Ms. Ariga, there have been reports. We've seen people who've been bussed NPP in NPP colors and from I think the chief whips, majority chief whips constituency in Sao Madridri, and they are there in the premises of Parliament right now. Has this come to your attention, and how do you respond to that? Are you also bringing your people there? What's the situation?
No. No NDC member has asked anybody to the presence of Parliament. I did see pass writing on it that I'm not on premier or something of that sort. I think it's Coco Senior High School pass with people in MPP paraphernalia. I personally saw it. It's not that somebody said it, but I personally saw it. And last night somebody sent me a text message saying that former chief whip, now minority chief whip, was passing through from their constituency. So when I saw it this morning, it just confirmed the message I received last night. But, we are not prepared by that. Nothing's going to happen. I mean, I don't think another employer has the capacity to inflict violence on anybody in this chamber. He just doesn't have the capacity. So we are not in any way moved by that. We're actually sitting there with him and chatting and laughing about it and asking him what he is doing with the past of what is also just here, and then we're all laughing. So trust me, nothing untoward will happen. We are just asserting our principled position that, what the judiciary did is an unwarranted interference with the powers and functions of the head of the legislature, that is the speaker, and we're taking none of that. And so it's not violence. If anybody is going to be violent, I'm sure that there will be enough capacity to contain that violence.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ayariga. Mahama Ayariga is the Member of Parliament for Boku Central, coming to us live in Parliament, that makeshift chamber at AICC. Let's take a quick break. We'll return with more on the AM show. We'll be right back.
all of them coming outside where they were stationed here before 8 a.m. We saw the military around, just ensuring that all was in order. We've not seen them around again. That needs to be put on record. It's just been police present and then the marshals who are here ensuring that all is in order at this particular point in time. So that was a lot earlier, close to over an hour ago, where we saw that particular situation. But it's all changed. And inside, which is expected to be the floor of Parliament as well, it's still the same situation. A number of MPs continue to make their way in, and the expectation is that they will all continue to sit on that right-hand side. A number of them came outside snacking. We've seen Habib Idrisu, James Kucha, Brady, and some others come out to snack as well. The Honorable Sam George, Dr. Dominic Ayeni as well, all stationed outside having conversations. And so in the minds of viewers at home, tense situation, but like you've been seeing on the live feeds that we've been providing you, it's been quite hearty in terms of the conversations they've been having amongst themselves. You've seen a lot of them crack jokes. We saw Obiamwa make his way in, having a very hearty conversation with Minta Kando, where they were arguing amongst themselves that they compare votes and the likes like that. And so on the outside, where it's all looks very tense, inside and around, between both sides of the house, really, there's been an open, friendly conversation, even as they continue to make the point and make it strongly that they are the majority and they will remain on the majority side of the house today, Roland.
When you had interaction with some of them from both sides, what was the level of thinking in terms of whether their personal opinions or what they thought the predicted atmosphere could be?
Well, for many of them, there will not be violence. It's one thing that both sides continue to reiterate, that nobody is going to be here to fight, and so they are just here with the NPP caucus insisting strongly on the fact that court processes have been served on the Director of Legal Affairs of Parliament, and so it presupposes that the status quo would stay and they will have to occupy the majority side. The NDC also makes the case and makes it strongly that the Speaker will have to decide, and if that's anything to go by, the Speaker's decision before they rose on Thursday was that they are the majority, and so until the Speaker says otherwise, they continue to be the majority. And so it's a position both sides have continued to take in the lead up to when processes will officially start here in Parliament. We've seen the order paper for today as well, and it doesn't suggest in any way or form anything which will prove the contrary as to arguments or debates being taken and the Speaker wanting to make open declarations as to what has been the service from the Supreme Court. But we'll wait to see really what happens. But for now, all is calm as they continue to make their way in and out of the floor of the House, and then waiting for official proceedings to start, Roland.
Well, thank you very much, Eric Egbeta, the President of Parliament, giving us the latest. Early on, he was in the chamber. You will find also currently live pictures on your screens that when you go to Parliament, especially at the public gallery, you'll find on your left, that is the designated seat, has always been the designated seat since the inception of the Fourth Republic for majority members of Parliament to sit. And then on the left, that is from the view or the premise of the public gallery, you have on the right the minority members. And early on, we had told you about actions of Frank Anodompre, the lead whip when it comes to the MPP side of the House, and then walking in early on, taking occupancy in the House as early as the early part of 6 a.m. Subsequently, the complaint had been coming also from Govins Kwame Agboja, who's also the whip on the side of the NDC caucus, that was against an order by the Office of the Marshal of Parliament that until it is 8 a.m., nobody should be allowed into the chamber. And so that was clearly a violation, so to speak. How they're going to deal with that, we don't know. But what has happened so far, we've seen also bringing to you live, is that the NDC side of the House who, when you speak to them, clearly based on the ruling of the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Gbagmin, the last week, insist they are the majority in Ghana's parliament. And of course, that same accolade has been arrogated by the MPP side as well, majority the MPP side. So the NDC side now, you can see Gavin Sagboja, etc. I see the back of Roxy Nelson, the Pharmaco. I see also Charles Woyome in there. I see Eric Opoku also, and a couple of them, but also seated on the, just close to the marshal, where his regular seat should be. I have Frank Anodompre, as I'm seeing currently. Next to him is the man who leads the NDC caucus, that is Kaisel Atofosi. Yes, circumspection is very important in these times, so that we don't add up to
he's the minority leader.
We don't add up to all that. So Kaisel Atofosi, for his side, said he's the majority leader for his side, or for Ghana's parliament. Apenyo Maki also said he's the majority leader. Based on the ruling, now on inferences, the speaker made that ruling, and so it will mean that it will be the NDC side that's on the majority, the MPP side on the minority. But we take the words from both sides as and when and report it as we can, as we do it ethically and journalistically based on our editorial policy right here at Media General. Now, you wanted to make a point of intervention.
Restate. If you have listened to the likes of lawyer Kwame Akufu, lawyer Bobby Banson, and I'm glad you read what lawyer Abuchi stated.
Koku Abuchi.
Almost everyone who has been honest to the facts and the evidence and to the content of Article 97H and G has also captured when Michael Kwe actually made a ruling. The current speaker is only applying what the Constitution has said. Michael Kwe made a ruling, and I just want to read portions of what he said for the sake of clarity. He says, having forfeited his membership of the party, and he's referring here to the independent member of parliament, who the MPP now claims is one of them, when he had decided to file and contest as an independent. He says, having forfeited membership of the party on which ticket he was elected to parliament, the operative language of the Constitution is that he shall, emphasis, which is mandatory, vacate his seat in parliament. Then he goes on to say, going by the purposive interpretation, this is Michael Kwe, of the present law, constructive actions on the part of the MP is important. With all intents and purpose, he is no longer a member of the party. He has pronounced himself publicly as an independent candidate and has filed papers to compete against the party and its official candidate as an independent candidate on 7th December 2020. Then he goes on to say this. On the occasion, this current parliament will still be sitting and operating as an official parliament of the Republic of Ghana. We shall not have a situation adopted freely by any sitting MP where he or she would be campaigning openly against the party that he or she still represents in parliament, and yet ridiculously stands against the party. No purposive interpretation of law would allow such ridicule to prevail. He continues, further, after December 7, 2020, when Parliament is still in session till 7th January 2021, how does an MP operate? Both, listen carefully, Ghanaians, how does an MP operate? Both as an elected independent MP and at the same time an MPP MP if he should win the election. This lacuna of a ridiculous situation is not what is anticipated under the 1992 Constitution. That is it. That is it.
And
this is common sense.
Distinguished.
That is common sense. And that is why any legal practitioner, what his or herself, cognizant of the separation of powers, and the meaning clearly as it has been stated in Article 97 G and H, can only agree with what Speaker Bagwin has also said.
Okay.
This is not a matter for any interpretation anyway.
All right.
Interpret what?
Nani Sapong, I'll just quell a few. We've already been having Justice Abdullahi regularly make his comment right here. And then also, I just quell it from the Daily Graphic of this morning. And we all know it's Ankuma of Bintiencho, Lechai and Ankuma. And he's a distinguished practicing lawyer. He says, Ghana practices a constitutional democracy, and therefore any act by an institution established by the Constitution, including Parliament, is subject to the Constitution. He explains that Parliament had complete freedom to conduct its activities, and the courts would ordinarily not interfere in the work of Parliament unless it was not in accordance with the Constitution. And then he relies on MPP versus Attorney General, that's the 31st December case, usually studied at many faculties, I'm told. The J.H. Mensah versus AG case, the Amidou versus Kufuor case as well, and even goes to Justice Abdullahi versus, and he says that in the act of Parliament must meet the constitutional litmus test. Now, when you variedly also go, you have also from the UPSA faculty, who teaches there, Albert Koshigan, legal practitioner. He says, the Supreme Court's decision is procedurally and substantially or substantively wrong, describing the apex court's action as plunging the country into a constitutional crisis. He continues by saying that the Supreme Court gives a ruling on a non-existent fact because as of the time the ruling was given, the Speaker of Parliament had already made a decision, which according to him meant the application for the stay of execution had not accrued any cause of action. And so the question that I ask of you, Nani Sapong, perhaps should the Supreme Court, bearing in mind of public opinion, the current atmosphere we have, perhaps hesitated and let the course of action follow, following what the pronouncement had been from the Speaker of Parliament, so to speak?
Constitution is constitution.
Okay.
Procedures are procedures. All right. The atmosphere in which the country finds itself, indeed, should have informed the decisions by the Supreme Court. But Roland, in all of this, what are the lessons being drawn? One critical thing that most of us are not giving attention to is the execution procedures of the Article 97, which has been sent to the Supreme Court for interpretation. And my two brothers here are all lawyers.
No, I'm not.
You're not a lawyer. Okay. But you've stayed in Parliament for how many?
Oh, this is my second term.
This is your second term. That's 12 years. Yes, you're going for the 12 years. Yes. So at least
okay,
it's good.
Listen, let me let you stay. Dr. Makuban, we lost him earlier. Dr. Makuban, good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, okay. So going forward, you're looking at the atmosphere in Parliament, military people, etc. What do you think will be sound advice? Governance, and then also looking at what public opinion is, and then the extent to which the office of the Speaker has to be respected, at the same time also the Supreme Court's own orders in relation to this. MPs have said they want to go independent or act otherwise as well.
Okay, I have to start by saying that the Constitution is poorly written. When it's that poorly written, nobody can be right. The way it is written, it means both sides are right at the same time. This is it. This is why we don't know what to do. Because there's no issue in this country about a citizen that is not allowed to change his mind. How is it that if you run as an independent, you cannot change your mind? Or if you join a political party, you cannot change your mind. Why? We change our minds about our wives and get divorced. What about a party? What is that? That makes no sense at all. This is what has brought all of this about. Because truthfully, we are not good people. I'm sorry. If you think you are exempted. It's up to you. We are not good because of corruption. If you allow people to change their parties, there will be a auctioning going on in Parliament. One time it's with this one, the next time it will be somebody else, depending on the legislation. How much? They'll crack around and say, okay, give me 500,000. This is what will happen. And because of this, we don't know what to do. We'll say, okay, that's it. You can't change at all. But that is not the solution. How can you not change? If you're with a bunch of people and they've gone wrong, they're doing bad things, you're forced to still stay with them. No, you can't. So there has to be an avenue of that redress to change parties or change any freedom of association. You can change your mind anytime. What is this? You're enshrining the same constitution, and yet when it comes to politics, you can't change your mind. What is that? This is the problem. That is why all of this is happening. Parliament is the domain, is the master of its own domain in terms of issues of organization and parliamentary procedures in Parliament. Supreme Court is the master of the Constitution in the whole country. So the Supreme Court area of responsibility is much wider than the Speaker. The Speaker is the leader of parliamentary affairs. But the parliamentarians are not affected only by parliamentary affairs. They are affected by issues of citizenry affairs too. So the Speaker's area is narrow, the Supreme Court's area is wider. So they are both right. But the Supreme Court has more leverage than the Speaker. No. And so the Speaker, for example, what brought this about? The Constitution says, Article 97 says, if you change your party, you'll be thrown out. It's very simple. So that does not allow you to change your party and remain in Parliament. It means you're thrown out. Although a crazy person will go and tell Parliament that I'm changing my party, knowing that they will throw you out, you still tell them. The whole thing is interpretation. The interpretation is completely wrong. It says if a person changes the party through which he came to Parliament, he will be thrown out. Your seat is declared vacant. But how do you join a party? Is it just by pronouncement? Can you just say, I'm joining NDC and that's it? No. This is the problem. It takes a whole lot more than that. So when the Speaker ruled that the minority will become the majority, I said, oh my goodness, this is not good. You should have waited. We got only 2 months to go and there'll be election. That is the real bona fide reason you can use to say this is minority and this majority. Not just somebody making a pronouncement of intent. I want to be this. I'm going to run as that. Does not mean you've done it. That's the difference here. The language, interpretation of the language too, we don't understand it. Your intentions are not action. They're just that, intentions. You have not done it yet. So you cannot use that as an excuse to declare a seat vacant. No. This is not a small thing. So it is appropriate when the Supreme Court comes in because this is not just affecting Parliament in terms of parliamentary rules. This.
Dr. Makuba.
Yes.
Okay. So what then do we make of the ruling by Speaker Michael Quay then on the former MP at the time? And how that has a bearing on the current actions also taken by the current speaker?
He didn't make a presidency. That's what the Constitution says. And that's what he did. That's the problem. It's the Constitution that says that Article 97 says, 97H says it clearly. And so he followed the Constitution and made that ruling. Not that he made a mistake. As I told you, the Constitution is wrongly written. What issue in this world or in this country can you not change your mind about? What issue? You can change your mind and marry another one. What about party affiliation? Why is that party affiliation? You have no choice. You go in and you die in it. Is that how it works? No. Nobody does it like that. But because of corruption possibilities, it's okay, that's it. Nobody goes anywhere. But that is not the answer to it. This is the problem. All the things you are saying, this one, this, yes. Because they wrote it poorly, you are right, and you are right. And it's not you saying it, it's the Constitution saying it. So you are just following the Constitution and you are wrong. This is what is happening. So we should look at the Constitution itself and stop blaming the Speaker or this one and that one, because they followed the Constitution, and this is what has brought them to. That's a problem.
Okay. That said, if we come to the present, we're just having live pictures. We've been there to Parliament where the army once again has been deployed to the precinct of Parliament, creating a certain sense of a siege atmosphere. As an astute political scientist and governance person, you think that is right for our democracy? Some few weeks to the election.
No, it's too early for that to happen. It's too early. They need someone to come and speak to them. That is not their fault. It's the way the Constitution is written. That's what has brought all these crises, you see. It's not their fault. The Speaker is right, and the Supreme Court is right. So what should happen? That's the problem. Don't bring the army in yet. Because if you bring him in this tense situation, somebody starts throwing stones, somebody shoots somebody. That's the end of it. They killed a lot of people. You see, so please, tell them to exercise patience. Okay. I say the Speaker is right, Chief Justice is right. As a matter of fact, if I have to say, the Chief Justice is more right than the Speaker, because parliamentarians are not only affected by the rules of Parliament, they are affected by rules of society too. Right. You see, and declaring a seat vacant is infringement of that person, that minister's right, and he has to get redress. And so the Supreme Court has the right to speak about that too, not just the Speaker. In fact, the Supreme Court has more right than the Speaker. So please, let them know the Speaker is not entirely wrong. Supreme Court is not entirely wrong. Please calm down, because this is a serious situation. Before you know it, trouble. Please, let tempers calm down.
All right. Great intervention so far. Dr. Richard Amakuba, thank you very much. Chief political scientist, also one of the leading members of the ruling MPP, giving us that contribution there. And I'll just introduce Professor Bafo Ajimandria. He's a governance expert. Good morning to you. Please unmute for me.
Good morning to you.
Great. And you've been making some varied contributions on this subject as well. What you've witnessed so far this morning, could we have had a better intervention on how to deal with this army deployment, the charged atmosphere, perhaps being exhibited by both sides of the House in the run-up to this morning?
Well, based on what you've been hearing for the past 3 days, it would have been irresponsible on the part of the national security people if they had not done what they just did. In other words, deploying security people. Because some of the statements coming out over the past few days have been quite furious, quite violent in so many ways, all kinds of threats. So for the interest of the safety of the parliamentarians themselves, it's important that security take measures to protect all of them. So that one, I don't have a problem with it. National security just doesn't act anyhow, but they act on intelligence, other kinds of things. And I think this is not unique to Ghana. It doesn't peace and no violence at such places, because it's happened before, and we don't want that to be repeated. So I don't have a problem with the deployment of security agents in ensuring peace. On the substantive issues, maybe you have some other questions, but I think on the more substantive issues inside the parliament, I think we can be lighthearted about the fact that all of them, the two parties, have sat on the same side, which in a way is good. It shows unity between the two parties. So let them be together on the side and for the speaker to do his work. This on a lighter note. But looking at us, so now we have achieved union government. Hooray.
Yeah, I think on the lighter note, that also comes in very handy. At the end of the day, we have a situation where actions were taken by 4 individuals, of course, 1 NDC MP and 3 MPP MPs as well. And there was an action same for which we had a ruling in 2020 by Speaker Okwe. At the end of the day, perhaps could we have dealt with this in a more amicable way, so to speak?
For sure. I mean, when human beings reason, when we use our brains to reason, there's always a solution. There's always a compromise. War breaks out when human beings fail to reason. So for sure, how many alternatives? By the way, you are referring to 2020 Michael Okwe's ruling. But don't forget also to cite 2012, when Speaker Do Ajaho allowed the parliamentarian of the NDC, Nyanu, to stay on after announcing that we'll be leaving the NDC to become independent the following year. So that was another choice that back then could have taken. So it's not only Michael Okwe's example that we should use, because it's happened before in 2012. You can check that. But exactly in October 2012,
yeah.
Nyaunu
I think it's Lower Manya or something like that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So it's not just Michael Okwe's reference. It's also that one. So in that respect, the speaker could have decided either way, either to follow, but even though when he was making his point, he said, look, I'm not bound by Okwe's ruling. He did his own independent decision, which we should respect, So I think constantly citing on Michael Okwe is not the point. We miss the point. A speaker, or for that matter, a president or chief justice making any decision must look at the larger environment of the country, the mood of the people, and so many things, because ultimately we are all seeking to have a peaceful environment in our country. Nobody wants violence. We don't want to disrupt our democratic process. So that should be ultimately what I think our leaders should be thinking about.
If there has to be an intervention at all, what sort of intervention is needed? From which quasi-state organs or institutions, either of states or of the society? And where should they be coming from?
You see, unfortunately for us in our country today, there is so much political partisanship. I'm not sure who can be seen generally to be neutral and therefore highly elevated socially to be acceptable. The institutions are all poisoned, so to speak, because most of such institutions, the heads are appointed by a president, not necessarily this president, a president. And these presidential appointments, for me, is part of the problem why trust in these institutions have declined so rapidly. Because whenever a president appoints somebody to head an institution or an agency, immediately we assume that the person belongs to the president's party. And generally so, because our president, present and in the past, have not appointed people on the basis of merit. They appoint people on the basis more, besides merit.
Professor,
yes.
Professor, just hold on there. We're bringing to you, and these live pictures are indicating the majority leader of the MPP caucus just ushering his people towards, is it the press? as I'm seeing, I don't know how the arrangement has been done. We'll call Egbeta to get the latest on the subject, but it looks like his side of the house, as the MPP caucus, also crowding around him, and a decision is being taken currently. I don't know whether to address the press or not, but I know that an imminent action is expected as and when something happens. But that's currently what's happening. A very fluid situation in the House. Apenyo Makin leading that as the leader of the side, and we're just waiting to see what action is going to be done. There's consultation ongoing among the leadership of the House for the MPP. I've seen Brian Ichampo, a couple of them as well. And then also you will find that Apenyo Makin is also leading that charge to make sure that their rights are settled. As and when we're able to establish beyond what is going on in the live videos we're bringing or feed we're bringing to you, we'll let you know as it is. Already, we just have to do a recall of what the position of Apenyo Makin has been over the last couple of days since the Speaker's ruling, insisting that despite the ruling of the Speaker, they remain the majority side of Ghana's parliament just in the run-up to this election. And they will assert their rights thereof. Going forward also, he's also insisted that they will make sure that that becomes the status quo as it is. So we're following closely, and as you're watching, the Marshal of Parliament or officers of the Office of the Marshal of Parliament So we'll call Egbeta to give us the latest artists. I think they want to address the press, so we will also take that as well. And I've already seen Frank Anodompre there. Apenyo Makin is behind Frank Anodompre, and they want to address Parliament, the press corps, or the other sections of the media who are there.
Important news for you. And this is the majority, still, this is the majority caucus, in line with the decision of the Supreme Court. So our leader is here, together our members. We have something important to tell you. So with rapt attention, shall we listen to the leader? Thank you.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen of the press, thank you very much for being present with us this morning. As you may be well aware, there was a decision by Mr. Speaker expressing his opinion on Article 97 of the 1992 Constitution. That opinion led to a declaration by him that those members have vacated their seats. Prior to his decision, I had brought to his attention that there was a pending suit at the Supreme Court, which pending suit was to seek certain interpretation of Article 97. In fact, Mr. Speaker himself acknowledged that on the floor of the House. As a result of his decision, the majority caucus expressed its disagreement with his decision and gave a clear indication that the matter will be pursued further at the Supreme Court. So on Friday, another process was filed by me, and the Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision, determined the matter and ruled, among others, that one, Speaker's interpretation of the law was wrongful, and that the Supreme Court was staying his decision pending the final determination of the case. In other words, his earlier decision to the effect that those 4 MPs, that is MP for Fomena, MP for Aguna West, MP for Suhum, and Amenfi Central, had vacated their seats, was nullified. In essence, we are law-abiding. We have heard that our colleagues say they disagree with the Supreme Court. They've been using unprintable words on the Supreme Court. On Sunday, the minority leader, my respected colleague, Dr. Forson, led the minority caucus in a press conference, whereupon they told Ghanaians that today they will come and occupy our seats by their own proclamation. MPP, our tradition, is a law-abiding tradition. Our forebears always use the courts to correct the wrong. Since 1992, our leaders have always used civil advocacy and the courts to ensure that we get the peace that we have today. On top of my head, I can recall the era where we used thumbprint ID cards and we used opaque ballot boxes. All these are things of the past today because of MPP. Today we have a very transparent electoral system because of the advocacy of our forebears. It's out there in leadership. The country is hereby informed that we will not give that lawless platform that NDC is seeking. We will not give them that platform. We will not give them that theater they so aggressively seek. They disrupt democracy and to destroy our nation. We know there are innocent people out there, innocent Ghanaians going about their business, innocent Ghanaians in the academia, innocent Ghanaians who are struggling to get 3 square meals on the table for their families. We care about them. We understand that there is politics, but we must do it in a civil manner. We believe that the appropriate thing is to quietly yield to them and wait upon Mr. Speaker. After all, the ruling was directed at Parliament and the Speaker, not an individual MP. Yesterday, the bailiff of the Supreme Court served Parliament of Ghana through the legal directorate. The director of the legal department received the ruling of the court. So, in other words, Mr. Speaker is on constructive notice, or maybe I should say actual notice of the ruling of the court. We have to leave it there and respect Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker has been part of our democracy since 1992. He's a senior lawyer. He's practiced in our court. And I believe that even if Mr. Speaker disagrees with the Supreme Court, he knows what to do. Suffice to state, at the risk of being repetitive, that we were not disrespectful of the chair. When the Speaker made his pronouncement and the majority caucus disagreed with Mr. Speaker, we didn't cause commotion here. We left quietly and told Mr. Speaker that the right place to express those grievances will be at the court. So we expect our brothers and our sisters on the NDC minority side to do the needful. But all would be for Mr. Speaker to make a final determination. The nation is looking up to Mr. Speaker. all his years in politics, this is a crucial moment for him to add weight to what we have done to preserve the peace. MPP is for peace. Yes. MPP is for peace. Yes. MPP is for peace of Ghana. Yes. We will not allow anybody to disturb the peace of the country. It is a notorious fact that we remain the majority caucus of this parliament. You, the media, must add your voice to the advocacy to compel our colleagues to respect the fidelity of the law. I have heard a respected colleague on their side, Honorable Dr. Ayini, calling on Mr. Speaker to respect the Supreme Court decision. If that is true, then that's a noble call from him. Dr. Ayini is somebody I respect because of his respect for the law. I believe that moderates on the side of NDC will prevail on the hawks in their party to call them to order. So I would want to thank you for being with us. We are leaving this chamber peacefully into our offices. Await Mr. Speaker's arrival, and if he calls leadership and we do pre-sitting discussions, we'll take it up from there. But for now, that lawless theater will not share with them, because Ghana, our country Ghana, is bigger than any one individual. So we would want to, at this point, sing our party's anthem to let you know who we are. Colleagues, we are the new patriotic party. We are the new patriotic party. The elephant is the winning symbol. We have won to save Ghana. The elephant is the winning symbol. We have won.
To chant a few of their revolutionary songs, and that is the situation as we have in Parliament. The majority leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, just finished addressing the press here in Parliament, insisting that they consider themselves the majority and will not concede that to the NDC. But for now, they are not going to give in to the NDC. For now, they are going to their offices up until the Speaker of Parliament takes his seat, and when he does take his seat and offers directions on what should happen next, then they will return to the House. So that is how far the situation is. This is Joy News Desk here on the Joy News channel. The NDC have now been left to be the ones who have taken their seats on the majority side in Parliament, and they say that everything points that they are the real majority. And now they are singing the national anthem, insisting that they are the majority in the House. Chaotic scenes that was expected hasn't happened. It hasn't happened at all. Just the NDC MPs having taken over the majority seats, and they say they are going to take that seat. There's absolutely no way they are going to hand that over back to the NPP. So that is the situation here in Parliament. For those of you who are just catching up It's been said to be a really confrontational sitting where the NDC and NPP all claiming the majority side. About 8 o'clock a.m. today, the doors to the Chamber of Parliament was opened, and the NDC and NPP MPs all walked in. The NDC MPs who have arrived here this morning in their numbers, they take over the majority side and are still seated. In fact, they are still seated on the right-hand side of Mr. Speaker, and we are waiting for 10 o'clock. It's actually past 10 now. That is the time proceedings was expected to start. It just hasn't started. There were a couple of NPP MPs who were seated up until the leader of the NPP caucus, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, came in and came to talk to some of his colleagues and then decided to address the media. The substance of their interaction with the media is that they consider themselves the majority. However, they are not going to conduct themselves in any way that will lead to violent confrontations on the floor of the House, for which reason they decided that they will leave the Chamber of Parliament, which is at the Accra International Conference Center, the Dome, and go back to their offices and wait for the Speaker of Parliament to come. When the Speaker of Parliament takes his chair, perhaps we'll call them for a pre-sitting. If he does call them for a pre-sitting, they will definitely talk among each other, and if there's any resolution to this impasse, they will do that. But the NDC MPs still on the floor of Parliament, chanting revolution songs, speaking the Arise Ghana Youth, and they say this is the moment that they really have taken over the majority in Parliament, and that is not something that they are willing to give up at all. There's a rolling coverage right here on Joy News where there's a lot of controversy in Parliament as to who exactly is. You see Sam George leading the chorus and NDC MPs really marching on the floor of the House. It's really fun times here for them on the floor of the House, because for most of them, they've gone back to their secondary school days where there's really a march past going on with Sam George leading. There's a lot happening, a lot happening on the floor of Parliament today. A day that has been said to be the country at the precipice of chaos. Ghana's democratic credentials being challenged. But so far it has been handled pretty well. The NPP MPs have come in and they've said that that's why their disagreement, they're not going to stay on the floor. They've left to their offices. But the NDC MPs remaining. You see a candle there. You see MP for Medina, Francis Xavier Sosu. You see a number of them really remembering their JHS and SHS days where they have marched past. They are not relenting. There's a lot of singing and chanting on the floor of the House as they wait for the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagwin, to come in to gavel the House in session. It's so far not been confrontational. There's not been a single confrontation except the one that happened around 8 a.m. when they were walking in, when two MPs had a little confrontation at a security screening door. But it has largely been peaceful. It's been fun, if I'm allowed to put it that way, with MPs on both sides claiming the majority side in Parliament. And we will try and get you some interviews and try and see what the situation is with both sides doing so. When the Speaker comes in, ultimately, because it's 10 o'clock and any moment from now, we will expect that the Speaker will walk in. When he does, what we will expect is the Speaker to inform the House, if he's so minded to do, whether or not the Supreme Court has served him with their order they made on Friday. The majority leader, you heard him there say that that order has been served on Parliament. And so the expectation will be that at least the Speaker of Parliament will comment on it. And whatever consequential directives he may be mandate to give. Mind you, there are efforts underway between yesterday and now to file some applications also at the Supreme Court to stay that order that has been made by the Supreme Court. So a lot of stay of execution applications flying all over the place. But as of yet, that has not been filed. And what that means, constitutionally and legally speaking, is that that order declaring 4 seats vacant by the Speaker has been stayed by the Supreme Court, which means the status quo prior to Thursday has been restored, and that the NPP are the minority, strictly speaking, by the Supreme Court declaration that they made last week. But the NDC MP say until the Speaker of Parliament communicates to them, that is not something that they are willing to. They are not willing to go by, because they do not take orders from the Supreme Court from social media, they only do so if the Speaker of Parliament communicates to them. So the Speaker of Parliament ultimately, and a lot hinges on the Speaker of Parliament and his pronouncement and declarations that he will make today. And when he comes in and he makes those declarations and he sets the stage properly for what we will see, then we can take it from there. So for Stina and our colleagues on News Desk, that is the situation here in Parliament. Just a recap of what has happened in the last few minutes. The majority leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, has come in. He has addressed journalists. He says that they consider that they are still the majority given the order of the Supreme Court. They are not going to give that up, but they are not going to stay on the floor and lead to confrontations with their colleagues. And so they are going back to their offices and wait for Mr. Speaker to come in for their usual pre-sitting. They will try and see if some agreements can be reached. If those agreements are reached, then so be it. If the agreements are not reached and it has to be, then they will not be part of it. And so they've left now. But a lot of NDC MPs on the floor. Every person you see on the floor now from your shots is an NDC MP, and they came in this morning, their numbers, to do one thing, to take over the majority side, and they've succeeded in doing so. And between now and when the Speaker of Parliament comes in and perhaps makes some consequential directions as to what exactly should happen, they say that they are the majority and will not give in to any person who will seek to take their rightful place, that is the majority side, from them.
Thank you, Kweku Asante, for bringing us that update. We're just telling what exactly is happening in Parliament. Initially, both the NDC and the NPP MPs, they occupied the majority side of Parliament. Then we saw Alexander Afenyo-Markin addressing the media. He says, quote, they would not partake in this lawless theater, referring to what is happening on the floor currently. They have left the chamber. They say they're going to their offices. They're hoping that the Speaker will respect the Supreme Court's ruling. Will the Speaker do so? That's something we're yet to find out. But I have in the studio Raymond Akwa and Winston Amwa. Winston heads our political desk and Raymond Akwa our research desk. Well, there are some people that argue that the Supreme Court erred in its ruling because it lacks jurisdiction. We've heard our NDC friends, lawyers, talk about lacking jurisdiction, and they quote Article 99 of the Constitution. Is that the case?
Now, there is something more important than the conversation about whether or not it has jurisdiction. And forgive me because I'm actually drilling down what's happening now. Two things are key here. First and foremost, and I've said it consistently, even if you disagree with what the Supreme Court has said, there are avenues for you to challenge that. If you think that it is so absurd a decision that it can never be corrected, I do believe that we have established for ourselves a jurisprudence that allows that the final say at that level is the Supreme Court of the Republic of Ghana. So please, let's not dismiss these claims. Let's not get it wrong. Let's not have doubts about the relevance of that institution in our jurisprudence. Let's also not get it wrong that I can have very serious problems with it. And I've heard people raise that serious issue. Can I, Raymond Akwa, at any point in time, file a case at 10 a.m. on Friday and get that case heard the same day? And we have seen others try it. People tell, oh, it's possible. We have tried that. We say justice ought not to be done alone, but ought to be seen and manifestly seen to be done. If there are difficulties with, and many people have raised it, again, there is also the general clamor. And if Afrobarometer's reports anything to go by, the judiciary, the police, and also the Electoral Commission, the trust of the public in these institutions is an all-time low. And I wrote a story on it, stipulating over the period how it's dipping and how it's gone to extremely low. So if you have an institution that's gotten its trust levels go this low, the essential understanding is that you want to improve it. Did this conduct of the judiciary improve trust in the institution? I'm not even talking the substantive issue, because I think it is possible for a court to make some of these orders, but as to whether it is reasonable, it is fair and candid, as Article 29 says, in the performance of your discretionary powers, even as a court, it must be fair, candid, and reasonable. You let me pretend that the jury is still out there on whether or not that decision was fair, candid, and reasonable. I am expecting that we do not create a chaotic situation where today the people in my hometown feel that a decision of the court does not go their way. It is preposterous, it's outlandish, and they have all the words you can use to describe it. And we decide that we'll do what we want to do. Or protest, and I'm not saying protest is wrong, or protest by deciding not to comply with it. What we can do, unfortunately, by the structures we have put together as a state, is to comply with the available alternatives here. For example, file a case to contest it. For example, ask that the issue be remedied one way or the other. So there are remedies still within our judicial system to correct this. Know why this is important? Many people believe this was an unjust ruling. Justice is key. But if we allow people saying that I will not comply with it to stand, it may mean that the court can give just rulings, and yet people will still say that I feel, and that's the key word there, I feel, or I think, or I disagree with it, but I will not exhaust the remedies available in law to me. I will go against that. That will be problematic. So that's why we should situate this conversation. We are not just having a conversation about whether or not who says left or right in Parliament. We are having a conversation about what in the United Kingdom they call the fundamental principles of state. What is separation of powers? Baron de Montesquieu conceived that, but at the core of separation of power is the other principle, checks and balances. So that in our system, no institution, be it the executive president who leads the executive, feels that they are too superior or they are above the other one. Simply put this way, someone is to make the law, Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Another person's job is to interpret the law. The people who made the law can feel that your interpretation is completely absurd. It's nonsensical. It doesn't make sense. But it is somebody else's job to do the interpretation of the law, even if you disagree with it. Again, enforcement and executive powers are enshrined in another branch's role. If one branch feels that the conduct of the other is impinging on this way, it is the responsibility of taking back to that particular judiciary. And let's not pretend that the five that sat and made a decision, that is the entirety of our judiciary. There are other people within that same scope that can give a different verdict on what has happened. I hope we are getting the scope properly. If the availability or if the alternative is there for you to explore that, we should not, and we are barely 2 months into the new election. The things that should be occupying our time, with all due respect, is whether or not we are fashioning a way out of the various options on the table for a better Ghana. Whether or not we have enough.
You can permit me.
Very last.
Okay. Because you've won 2 caps before, one as a politician and one very much as an attorney general and a key player in our jurisprudence and the law, why do you think this matter has divided public opinion? And this one we're talking about just for ordinary Ghanaians, voters, etc.
Oh, it's normal, isn't it? I mean, this is politics. We are some 6 weeks, 40 days before an election. We are busy out there raising our political beliefs, talking to our people, getting people on each other's sides. So it's kind of normal that the whole country would be poised to do this. I don't want to raise tension by saying giving 1 or 2 choice phrases, but honestly, this should not have happened at this particular point. We are out on the field campaigning. Our people are looking up to us as leaders. Let us be the leaders that we are. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Betty Moldidrisu is a former Attorney General, Minister of Justice as well, and just when it comes to the issues, seem to have dealt with on the side as a politician, very much so as somebody who plays a key role when it comes to the law as well, practicing lawyer, former Attorney General. Well, we have to go to Parliament where Alfred Okanse is ready. And Alfred, we've been looking at the live proceedings in the chamber. The MPP led by Afenyo Makin, they've walked out, or not necessarily walked out, they've retired to their offices, so to speak. What do you make of the situation based on your interactions with key members of parliament and key personalities where you are?
Roland, thank you. So, as you rightly indicated, the NPP caucus led by Alexander Afenyo-Makin have decided to vacate Parliament and go into their offices to wait for the Speaker's arrival. For them, they have also resorted to that position that the NDC caucus also communicated on Sunday during their press conference, that they would only respond to the direction and communication of the Speaker of Parliament. Alexander Afenyo-Makin, the Hutu member of Parliament, was quite clear when he was addressing the press that he is well aware that the Speaker's office has indeed been served. And so they would expect that the Speaker, with his long years of experience in law, would also acknowledge that service. As to whether that's going to be done, we'll wait to see how the coming minutes ahead of us will look like. We're getting strong indication that the Speaker, as we speak, is on his way, not to Parliament, which is currently being hosted in this temporary location at the Accra International Conference Center, but first to his office that is within Job 600, as has always been the case before he proceeds to Parliament. But the Honourable Ina Adisu, the Tamale South Member of Parliament, is walking around. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is TV3. This is thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Leader will talk to us. Leader will talk to us. He will talk to us. Let him. He will talk to us. He will talk to us. He will talk to us. And I just wanted to find out from you and how the songs have been so far. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. So yes. So perfect. Okay. We're coming there. So that's Haruna Idrisu. We're going to catch up with him in a bit. We understand that they are having a crunch meeting in there, and so he's needed to address the NDC caucus as we speak. He's just okay. I'll be with you in a bit. So he's beckoning on us that right after his meeting with the caucus, he would also be speaking to us. So stay with us here on your election command center. Bear in mind, it is because of his petitioning that all of this is playing out as we're seeing. The Honorable ABF Husseini is going to be joining us in a bit. He's a Sagnerugu member of Parliament. We'll have a quick conversation with him as well and how things are playing out. But as we speak, we understand that the leadership of the NDC caucus in Parliament is having a crunch meeting ahead of the arrival of the Speaker of Parliament here in Parliament, Alban Sumana, Principal Bagwin. So we're keeping a close eye on that as well, and we'll tell you exactly how things are playing out. But right now, we do know that there are some filing processes that we've gotten some information that the Speaker's lawyers are going through the filing process to stay the Supreme Court's directive to Parliament. In fact, that's the information that we're getting right now, and so we'll be getting you some more as we go on here on your election command center. But the Honourable ABF Husseini is the Sagnerugu member of Parliament, going to be joining us in a bit to have a quick conversation on some of the issues and how things are playing out right now, and then also where that's the NDC MPs as well, the position that they have taken on this particular issue and how things are playing out right now in Parliament. But I can tell you that, as was expected, there are a number of persons, especially journalists across the world, who are here to witness what is going to be happening today. And as was communicated yesterday in the statement from Parliament, some measures, security measures have been put in place here. If you get in, you're thoroughly searched before you get into the Chamber of Parliament. And in fact, as we speak at the moment as well, we've seen a heavy police presence here. The military were here earlier. When I spoke to them, the commander who was leading the group of military personnel here, I met them around the forecourt of the State House. They indicated to me that they were not here for any business related to Parliament. They were here to train and then also to mark the UN Day, which is just 2 days away. So this whole week has a number of activities outlined ahead of the United Nations Day, which is on Thursday. And as a result, they are having to go through these activities as well and how issues are playing out right now. And so at the focus of the State House, there is a flag raising ceremony with some military personnel who are with the United Nations detachment. And those are the military personnel that we saw here. And they are not, according to them, having anything to do with the business of Parliament. Honorable A.B.S. Hussaini is the Member of Parliament for the Stagnant constituency. He's joining us right now. Honorable A.B.S. Hussaini, thank you so much for joining us here on GD3 live right now. And the NPP caucus have decided to go and wait for the Speaker in their office and leave you here in the Chamber of Parliament. How does that strike you?
First and foremost, let's thank you for working so hard and conscientious to uphold the democracy that we have. I want to commend to continue on that trajectory of holding all of us, I'm not talking of India, all of us accountable to the constitution of this country. That is the way. But I'm sure that our colleagues on the other side, the minority side, that is the ethnic minority, I'm sure they have seen like the hate. Clearly, following Mr. Speaker's visit, which has designated as a majority, we came and guys we have find out, waiting for Mr. Speaker to come for that business. I'm sure they have to legitimately take their seats on the minority side. I'm not sure whether that was part of the space. That we in the NDC side, by the grace of Allah Almighty, we stand here today at the majority. We are going to sit there until January 7th, and I believe January 7th we get the requisite majority and continue. So after we have made this statement that sitting on the majority, this will commence way up to January 7th when we be sworn in. I will continue.
I see. And even before the NPP caucus leader, Alexander Tedemakin, walked in, some of them were also occupying the majority side with you as well. So it doesn't look like they've agreed that.
What I know is that it is not uncommon for members of Parliament from the other side to talk about sit with their colleagues, and when you saw that they were chatting. So I'm sure they came on a chat.
They came to visit.
Yeah, to visit our participants in chat. Because they know where they rightly belong.
Where do they belong?
Minority.
They haven't accepted them.
I think that they know that is what it is. They can't say that is their destiny now. It's been said by law. And they can't do anything about it.
Well, they have taken this matter to the Supreme Court, as you might be aware.
So let's wait for the condition. Because as we speak, and I've heard people say that this one should have been jumped us. No, we shouldn't. Alfred, we are operating a doctrine of separation of powers, checks and balances, where the three organs of government are independent. None of the organs can dictate to the other organ how you should conduct your proceedings. For instance, Mr. Speaker cannot go and tell the chief judge, take this person to this court or change this judge and put him here. Right? Mr. Speaker has no such authority. Neither can Mr. Speaker go and tell Mr. President, appoint this person as minister or take this action in this ministry. The same way, the Chief Justice has no authority to direct Mr. Speaker about the proceedings of this House. She has no such authority. And if you have listened to all the legal luminaries, they say that it's an official overreach. That the Chief Justice has gone for a power grab. What she did, she has no authority to do what she has done. But she cannot direct Mr. Speaker how she conduct the business of this House. It's an overreach. So it has no effect. And I can tell you without any item that we are anchored in the belief that the ruling that Mr. Speaker gave is a proper, not just the ruling in terms of the laws of our country, but the practice and the hard fact. Alfred, I just need to draw your attention the fact that Mr. Speaker making that decision. You saw that he said that he had gone for the notice of poll, the letter from issue. Yes. And the notice of poll presents evidence of hard facts about the change in the status of the aforementioned MPs. And that all their status had changed from
the NPP MPs.
Yeah, the NPP MPs and also the independent. The independent has also transmogrified from an independent to an MPP. Yes. And the MPP also had changed from their party to independent. And so,
including an NDC MP.
Yes, including our colleague party. So, Mr. Speaker said that those are incontrovertible facts. He said that these are incontrovertible facts. And once they are incontrovertible facts, the argument that nobody disputed it.
Right.
Nobody disputed it.
Honorable, appreciate your time on this. And please stay. We're going to have a quick conversation, a lot more on this. But let me remind you, so live here on your election command center, live from Parliament. The Honorable Haruna Idrisu, the Tamale South Member of Parliament. Thank you so much. And yes, indeed. But looking at how things are playing out right now from you, and we're live on TV3 right now. But as we speak, the MPP caucus have decided to go and wait in their offices. But Honorable,
I'm assessing my ground.
The NDC caucus is having a meeting.
Yes. I'm having my consultation. Let me put it. I certainly will speak, but not now.
You will speak.
I'll speak, but not now.
But the Honorable Idrisu there is indicating that he's going to certainly speak. In fact, as we're talking right now, there are a number of caucus meetings happening in Parliament. That's in the Chamber of Parliament and outside the Chamber as well. He has walked out with his other colleague members of Parliament, having seen a number of them in small groups, having discussions, strategizing on what to do next. So that's what's going to happen right now. We're keeping an eye on how things are playing out here in Parliament on your election command center. So stay with us. And we're keeping strong and close tabs with how the members of Parliament are positioning themselves. What we do know, in fact, is that the NPP MPs are currently in their offices awaiting the arrival of the Speaker. So that's one that as well that we're keeping an eye on. And approaching the NPP MPs, specifically where they are in the offices, and we'll have a quick word with them. And then also how they are strategizing ahead of the arrival of the Speaker of Parliament. Stay with us shortly. We'll have Samuel Nate George, who's a member of Parliament for the Ningo Pram constituency, who has also clearly communicated what the party's strategy beyond today will be, and that they have resolved to stay the majority in this 8th Parliament. And that is one that both parties have also resolved to do. But as to whether the Speaker would either heed to, or as it were, stand his ground with reference to this directive from the Supreme Court is one that every one of us is waiting to see and to hear from them as we go on here on your election command center. And so we have some members of in fact, Dr. Kisela Toforcing has also just walked out with 2 members of Parliament, who have just gone to our left as are grouping groups of 3 and 4 members of Parliament. It is unclear why they are. But this is one as well that gives us a clear idea of how the NDC MPs themselves are strategizing going forward. And then also to hear exactly what the way forward will be for them. Honorable Murtala Mohammed is seen having a conversation as well with the Honorable Haruna Idrisu. Is one that you'll see all of them in groups. Ahmed Ibrahim, who is also coming in right now with the Bole Member of Parliament, the Bole Bamboy Member of Parliament as well. And in fact, you're seeing a number of them coming through right now. George Pekuri Kitega, the one accord, one leadership direction from their leader, Dr. Kisela Toforcing, who has already spoken and communicated to the press what the decision and the direction of the NDC caucus in Parliament will be. They have occupied the majority seat in Parliament, that is the right side of the Speaker, and so we will see whether, based on how the end of the day will be, this particular position they have taken will be one that the Speaker will affirm or otherwise. But we do know that the Speaker's lawyers right now are also preparing to file a defense in challenging the directive and authority and jurisdiction of the Supreme Court in giving this particular directive to Parliament. So this is one that we want to stay with us here on your election command center as we get a lot more of the NDC MPs to speak to, and as well get their views and comments and opinions on how things are playing out right now. And we will have Samuel Natijo joining us right now. Is the Member of Parliament for the Ningo Prom constituency. We want to have a quick conversation with him, gauge the mood ahead of the few minutes we have ahead of us right now here on your election command center to tell you what the members of Parliament, especially the NDC caucus, have decided going forward. But it is also instructive to put across as well that earlier we got information, and in fact, someone like George is here with us as a member of Parliament for the Ningo Prom constituency. Appreciate your time, Honorable. Thank you for joining us here on TV3 live right now. The NPP caucus have decided to vacate Parliament, awaiting the arrival of the Speaker, because they say they are still in the majority because of the ruling by the Supreme Court. Is that one that, as a caucus, you are going to, as it were, accept, or the expectations of the Speaker would be to give a final determination?
Well, the NPP has shown gross disrespect to the Speaker. If the NPP is saying that the Speaker should come and sit in the chair before they come in, that shows gross disrespect. Either about parliamentary standing or customary law. You don't expect the Speaker to come and sit in the chair before you walk. By all parliamentary procedure anywhere in the world, members of Parliament are seated and we rise for the Speaker and the base to arrive. Right now, the NPP minority group in Parliament is trying to tell us that they are bigger than the base of Parliament, that they are bigger than the Speaker of Parliament. So the Speaker should come and sit before they come. What's disrespect? But I mean, it speaks to the arrogance of Parliament, the arrogance that has beclouded their sense of judgment. For us, we are taking our minds, but the majority of us are so declared. Nothing has changed since then. The notices of polls have been put out, and we are going to continue with the ruling of business.
Well, let's say the Supreme Court has said otherwise.
The Supreme Court doesn't determine the business of the House. The business of the House is not under the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Have you seen the Supreme Court tax directive to the executive, to a minister of state or the president? Have you seen the Chief Justice sit and panel? But even when somebody was abusing the executive instruments during COVID, did you see the Supreme Court issue a directive? But Sebi, as they say, he back when at the New Year, so he's the one they would disrespect. And I think Parliament itself has contributed to this.
Why is that?
Because Parliament has sat aloof and allowed the judiciary and the executive to not operate for too long. In the case of the LGBT bill, Parliament is enjoined by the Constitution, Article 1067, to transmit a bill that is passed by this House straight to Parliament. There is no injunction, so why is Parliament not transmitting the bill? Why has the Speaker not insisted on transmitting the bill? And I stood in the floor of the House and told Mr. Speaker, I said, Mr. Speaker, if the President has asked the Secretary to write a cease and desist warning to you, plus the clerk to also write a cease and desist to the President, that we will not entertain any business. It's quid pro quo. But because we've bent over backwards for them. When you give people an inch, they will take a back. And that's why today, because we have allowed them to do the things they've done, they've become so emboldened that they think it is within their rights to be able to determine to Parliament what we should do.
To the extent that we need to wrote that letter saying the Parliament don't transmit this bill because there are cases in court, you are expecting that the Speaker would reciprocate that same action?
Absolutely, because there's no injunction. As to speak, is that an injunction against Parliament? No. Is that an injunction against Parliament? It's been 8 months since we passed it. Is that an injunction? No. So why has Parliament not exerted its authority? And because Parliament has failed to exert its authority, that's why anybody judges engaged in whatever activism would take the kind of action that they take. But Parliament will not be subject to judicial activity.
Well, if you listen to the leader of the MPP caucus, the reason why they decided to resort to the Supreme Court, some have challenged the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court in this matter. But he says that to the extent that the Speaker communicated in the manner in which he did, he overstepped his bounds. It cannot be the case that the Speaker can sound as though he is interpreting the Constitution and say that he is only applying the dictates of the Constitution, Article 97(1).
The Speaker did not seek to interpret the Constitution, only abide by the Constitution and join the Speaker to announce the vacancy of the seat when same is occasion. And then Article 97 gives you the basis on which that vacancy can occasion, the death of a member of Parliament. So if that has been occasioned, and there's evidence of same from the Electoral Commission, and the Speaker communicates same, what is the Supreme Court interpreting? In fact, the Supreme Court has set its own questions and answers, because the ruling the Supreme Court gave is completely different from the case Afenyo took. Afenyo took a case on Monday, last week Monday, to the court. Placed an injunction on the Speaker for passing a determination on the status of the form. The Supreme Court only sat on Friday. Meanwhile, the Speaker had made the determination on Thursday. So if the Speaker had determined on Thursday already the matter before the Supreme Court, what was the Supreme Court ruling on? What have they ruled on? Except they chose to set their own questions and answer their own questions. So now the Supreme Court is the applicant in the case, has been the judge in the case. They can't be judged and everything in their own case. Absolutely not. The Supreme Court can't be a plaintiff.
Well, we saw a number of the MPP MPs as well at the majority side with you seated there. How's it going to end?
Well, they've all vacated. They have no business there. And let's be clear. The issue of majority and minority in this parliament was determined by Speaker Bagwell, not by the court. And that's why I keep saying that the most unintelligent commentary I have heard, the most unintelligent commentary I've heard so far in this whole conversation is what Mahmoud Bawumia said. When he says that if the NDC wants a majority to go to the poll, the majority he claims they have, did he get at the polls? At the polls, they did not get 137. NDC got 137. So where did they get their majority? And those who remember, in January this 2021, the Speaker was not calling them the majority caucus. He was calling them the MPP group and calling us the NDC group. Until the Speaker determined that, okay, upon the CMA's application, he had two routes to take. Either say that every time voting was going to occur, he would count his CMA's votes depending on where he votes, and that would be it. Or he would take the route he took, where he decided to add a CMA's number to theirs to make them the majority group. And so it was a ruling from Mr. Speaker that made the NPP 137 become the majority in Parliament. It wasn't the polls. So, but what doesn't know what's happening? And that's why I say the most unintelligent argument. Because what he is asking for, that his claims is defending. He didn't win at the polls. At the polls, he got 137, got 137. That's not a majority. I mean, but I would understand if Dr. Bawumia does not know that 137 is equals to 137. It's the reason why our economy is in a mess.
Talk about Andre Siama. Now that the effect of the Speaker's decision as communicated on Thursday is no more the second deputy.
Yes, we will elect the second deputy.
You're going to elect the second
deputy. We will elect the second deputy.
Conversations have started already?
I believe we're done with that conversation already. When the Speaker comes, we will notify him about it.
You're done with the conversation of who is going to be second deputy Speaker?
Yes. Yes.
You want to give us an indication?
No. We'll do that on the floor.
You're going to announce who the second deputy speaker is today.
It's a process of natural election. Parliament must have two deputy speakers. One from the first deputy from the minority group, and the second from the majority group.
And that's going to be from you, the NDC.
Definitely. Definitely. If they want to put it to a vote, you don't have a problem.
Thank you. Someone at the judge is member of parliament for the Ningo Program constituency. Give us clear indication of the direction the NDC caucus in parliament is. This is your election center. We're live with parliament, giving you every bit of the detail as it plays out on TV3 and also 3 in the next 2.7. The NDC MPs are the only ones in the chamber right now. The NPP MPs have resorted to their offices, awaiting the arrival of the speaker. That's what George indicates as a disrespect to the Speaker of Parliament, because his entry now, what we're saying, will not witness the NPP MPs here in present, and we'll see against or they come in. That's another issue to look at as well. And so, Roland, you can see how things are playing out right now. we will engage some of the leaders of the NDC caucus in Parliament shortly, but they are resolute that they are in the majority. Roland.
Very much, Alfred Okanse, monitoring events there in Parliament, spoken to a number of key personalities just to get what the mood is. As of now, we know that Afenyo Makin has led the MPP side of the House, the MPP caucus. They have so far retreated to their offices, and the substantive position he holds now is they're waiting for the Speaker to call for proceedings to start, and then we'll have the business of the day. Haruna Idris in your picture there, and a lot of consultation ongoing in Parliament. But substantively, we have to come back to the studio, do a wrap-up, and we're grateful to you, three personalities, for standing with us throughout the period. Indeed, we didn't know that we'll have to travel this far. But Vincent, what do you make of so far the position has been taken by your side of the House also to make sure that you follow due process?
Well, I think that this is an exhibition of maturity on the part of the majority side of Parliament, led by the Honourable Afenyo Makin. Indeed, we had already indicated, even when I came this morning, that we are not going to give them, going to give to them what they want. We are not going to give in a showdown. We are going to make sure that it is the law that will govern this country. And so, as the leader, we will leave it to the Speaker for the Speaker today to make a determination whether the process or the ruling that has been filed on him is going to abide by it or not. We all know the consequences for not abiding by the orders and rules from the Supreme Court. But to